A lot of people talk about bugging out. What is bugging out? What exactly does it mean to bug out? And should everyone have bug out as a part of their PACE plan? A PACE plan is where you have your primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plans. You never know exactly what's going to happen. There could be a fire, or a tornado, or a flood, any type of natural disaster. You could be forced out for extreme rioting depending on where you live and what's happening. You never know when you might have to leave your primary location. Of course you want to stay at home. Of course you want to bug in if you can. Bugging out simply means going to an alternate or contingency location that you are also going to bug in at. You should have caches en route to these locations. Now listen, you don't have to have a cabin in the woods or land in Montana or anything like that. It could be a friend's house in a more rural area. It could be a relative's. It could be a commercial campground. If society went down because of some sort of large-scale event, you don't have to own land. Obviously, you don't want to go on private property. You want to avoid that because you don't want to be killed by someone else defending their land. But a lot of people have a misconception about what bugging out means. People think bugging out means, I'm just going to leave everything I have and I'm going to go live in the woods. That's not what bugging out is. That's the last resort in anyone's PACE plan. The E in PACE is for emergency. That's when you have no other choice. Now, there's also a lot of misconceptions, or what we would call, it's just strange things in the industry where people talk about bug out bags. They say, hey, I'm going to have a get home bag, but it's not going to have quite as much stuff as my bug out bag. And then I'm going to have an inch bag, the I'm never coming home bag, which is going to have everything, including the kitchen sink. We don't actually think any of that's necessary. Your needs are going to be your needs no matter what. If you have caches and pre-stocked alternate and contingency locations, you shouldn't be carrying around a 50 to 60, 70-pound bug-out bag. But you also shouldn't have a get-home bag that barely has the essentials that you need, because you don't know exactly where you're going to be if something happens. So you really want to have everything: fire, water, food, shelter, first aid, signaling, land nav, in one kit. You can get away with a sub 20-pound pack and have everything you need to get from point A to point B. Obviously, keeping in mind where you are, the time of year, because some winter supplemental kits may add some weight to your packs. And that's all you're trying to do. You're either trying to get home to your primary location, or if something happened there, you want to get off the X, you don't want to be there, that's when you're going to go to your alternate location, which hopefully is pre-stocked, pre-planned, and ready to go. And you've rehearsed this multiple times. We know that everyone wants their home to be their castle. I mean, hell, it's why we made the ultimate bug-in and home defense film. But in that film, we also discussed the fact that you may need to leave. You may not be able to stay. And in other films, if there's, say, a large solar flare that knocks down the grid, or there's a high-altitude EMP that knocks down the entire U.S. grid, you're not going to want to be in the city. The city is going to be filled with starving, desperate people, and even the most normal people will try to kill you to get what you have if their children are starving. So yes, your home is your castle, but it's very situationally dependent, and you're not always going to want to stay there depending on what happens. So we say, try to have a PACE plan in everything that you do. Make sure that you do have alternate and contingency plans, and that you know how to execute them, and that everyone in your family knows how to execute them. These are very important pieces of preparedness. Just don't get caught up in all the craziness in the industry saying you need all these different kinds of bags. Some people even say, I don't really need a bug-out bag. Everything that I need, I would have to stock in a truck or put in a trailer or something to that effect. And that makes sense to a certain degree. But if you have a proper PACE plan with caches en route to your alternate and contingency locations and areas that are already pre-stocked, that allows you to travel fast and light. So that theory that you can't have a bug-out bag because it's not enough stuff and you can't fit everything you have in a trailer to get it where you need to go, that doesn't really matter if you have a proper PACE plan. At least that's our opinion. This may not apply to everyone also. You may already live in a rural area. You might already have a community. You might have people that you absolutely have to take care of. You may have a group that you're definitely not going to leave because you know they need help defending themselves. But also keep in mind, again, natural disasters, fires, floods, tornadoes, riots. You may be forced to leave that location. You may not have a choice. So that's why it's important, very important, to have a PACE plan. And that's why it's also equally important to make sure that not all of your gear is in one location. If you don't have pre-stocked alternate and contingency locations, as well as caches, you could end up in a spot where you're right. You're not going to be able to get everything you need to go somewhere else to survive. That's why you have to do it in advance of something ever happening. We've made 3 different films. We've made 2 different films on bugging out, and we've made 1 film on bugging in with E.J. Snyder from the show Naked and Afraid. We plan to make more in the future. I really want to have 1 film that kind of covers all aspects of bugging in, bugging out. Because like I said, even if you're bugging out to your alternate location, you're still bugging in when you get there. You still want to try to have a group. You're going to need 360-degree, 24/7 protection, so you're going to need a team where you all cover each other's back, where everyone contributes to the group, and that is how we would survive a large-scale, society-ending type of event. Also keep in mind, it's not always going to be the end of the world. It could be something that may, put the country into chaos for a month or a couple months. It may not take the entire grid going down for something crazy to happen where you need to enact some of these plans. So just get the training, get the gear, make sure you're buying high quality gear. But again, training is so much more important than gear. Always remember that. These are just some things that we want you guys to think about.